Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to another video of Geeked on Science. So, today as you can see, we're going to be learning about the human body's respiratory system. So about 400 million years ago, one fish did the impossible. It literally just walked up to land and started breathing air. From that point on, we got the human body's respiratory system. So, one of the first questions you might be asking is, how does the respiratory system even work and what does it do? Well, the respiratory system is a multitude of organs that takes oxygen from the air, gives it to our cells, takes the cell's carbon dioxide, and releases it from our body. And it uses this using aerobic respiration. And it also has gas exchange, or called breathing, and it plays a crucial role in maintaining our body's oxygen supply and removing waste gases, which are carbon dioxide. So let's quickly go see what each one of those organs does. So the first organ is the nose and the nasal cavity. The nose acts as a primary entry point for air, and inside the nose we find the nasal cavity, where it filters, warms, and moistens the air. There are also three flaps of skin which help keep the air there for longer. Using the air there, when it is longer in the three flaps of skin, the air is moistened more and filtered. Because if you think about it, if air goes straight to the lungs, then it would be easier for pathogens to get into your body. But here, by keeping it a little longer in the flaps of skin, it can also help with our sense of smell using olfactory receptors. And these receptors work with our brain and the molecules of in the air that help us smell things. So, you might say, well, can't you also breathe through your mouth? Yes, you actually can. And this also serves as an alternate entry point, although I wouldn't recommend it, and neither would professional doctors, because it doesn't allow the air to properly be filtered when the air goes through the trachea. But if the nasal passages are blocked when you're sick, then the mouth does become an essential point of breathing, although it's not really a major part of the respiratory system when the nasal cavity is not blocked. So, where does it go after the oxygen enters and got filtered? It goes straight to the pharynx, or the throat. Here, an epiglottis, or a flap-like structure, prevents the air, or the food that you eat, from going down the trachea, and makes sure that it goes down the esophagus, which we learned last video is the tube that connects the mouth to the stomach. But the air does not go down the esophagus. It goes down the trachea. And here, the trachea also serves as a common passageway for both food and air. So, the trachea, also known as the windpipe, here the trachea is a wide and hollow tube. And if you've ever noticed, last video the esophagus was a thin and not as rigid as the trachea. The trachea is rigid because if the trachea was thin and flappy, every single time the lungs contracted, the trachea would collapse because of the amount of pressure that the lungs are creating when they contract. So, to make sure this doesn't happen, it has rigid ring-like structures to keep it open, and this ensures the airflow to and from the lungs. And this also preparation ensures that the air entering the lungs is at an optimal temperature and a humidity level for efficient gas exchange, and we'll learn what that is when we get to the alveoli. So, after the trachea, when the trachea branches off into two separate pieces that go into both the lungs, these pieces are called the bronchi. And these are just the main airways into the lungs. And when you breathe, the air that enters your body through your mouth passes through the larynx and trachea, and then the trachea branches into the bronchus in each lung. And these are again equipped with small hair-like structures called cilia, and these help move the mucus out of your lungs, because if not, then again pathogens would get into your lungs and then harm your body. So the bronchi help make sure that the air is clean before it enters your lung. And after that, it goes into the bronchioles. Again, not into your lung, into the bronchioles. And the bronchioles are just smaller air passages that go inside the lungs, and they serve as conduits for air, connecting the alveoli and the bronchus, making sure that gas exchange occurs properly. And here alveoli, or small sacs, are connected to the bronchioles to make sure that gas exchange occurs via simple diffusion. And the bronchioles deliver air network to approximately 300 million alveoli, guys. That's crazy. 300 million to make sure that we can breathe properly. It is fascinating. And now the alveoli. These are just tiny sacs of little grape-like looking balls that play a very crucial, important role during gas exchange. Through simple diffusion, a molecule of CO2 goes into the alveoli, and a molecule of oxygen diffuses through epitheliumous tissue into the red blood cells. And this works efficiently because the alveoli have the thinnest tissue, and there are a multitude of capillaries right outside the alveoli ready to take the oxygen. So the oxygen only has to diffuse through a small layer of epitheliumous tissue, and so along with the CO2. Let's look at this in more detail. So, as you can see, the epitheliumous tissue is where the diffusion occurs, and the capillaries are shown as red and blue. Here, oxygen is waiting for O2, or oxygen is waiting for red blood cells to get to the capillaries. Once that happens, the oxygen molecules diffuse across thin alveolar walls or epitheliumous tissue into the bloodstream and hemoglobin in red blood cells, where they bind to hemoglobin. And the CO2 dropped off by the red blood cells in the capillaries goes the same way that the oxygen came in. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. My only request for this video is that you like, share, and subscribe the video, and tell me anything that I could improve on in the comments, because this helps me improve my videos for you. Thank you so much for watching once again.